So this is the main area of my research, home food operations or cottage foods for the state of Iowa, as well as home bakery. So in the state of Iowa, we have a special license for home bakery. So that's what we're going to go over today, both home bakeries and exempt home food operations, what they can and cannot sell. So by definition, by the Department of Inspections and Appeals, a home bakery is a business on the premise of a residence that is operated as a home-based bakery where baked goods only are prepared and consumed elsewhere. So home bakeries can produce products, baked goods in their home and sell directly to the consumer. They can produce them at home and sell them at the farmer's market. They also have the ability to sell retail. There is a license associated with home bakeries that are issued through Department of Inspections of Appeal or your regulatory authority in your area. There's a $33.75 so far right now for annual fee each year, and you cannot exceed above $35,000. And as I mentioned before, you can sell at farmers markets, you can sell direct to consumers out of your home, and you can sell wholesale to restaurants and grocery stores. That is only for baked goods, so we mean breads, cakes, donuts, pastries, buns, baked things. And you also have the ability to sell temperature control for safety baked products, so soft pies, cheesecakes, baked goods with custard or cream filling. You cannot sell raw cookie dough. So when we say what is TCS, that's also known as potentially hazardous foods, but now in the food code, they're changing it over to TCS, which is temperature control for safety. These are your perishable refrigerated items. And that refrigeration is not used to kill, and I guess that's what he was saying with freezing. It's not used to kill bacteria. It's used to slow down the growth of bacteria, of some bacteria. And so, yes.
Well, just quickly on the previous point about home bakeries being allowed to sell soft pies and cheesecakes and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
That's for retail or direct to consumer, correct? Not for farmers markets.
They can sell at farmers markets, but they have to get an additional license
Yeah.
so you have your home bakery license, and then you have another temporary license to sell it at the farmers market, and you have to have the right storage. So you have to have some type of cooler and ice and all of that to prove your product is prepared for selling.
Okay, and so you don't need that license for direct to consumer and retail?
No. And so some examples are certain pie fillings, certain toppings and glazes that will fall under that category that will make your baked product fall under that. So, and we just talked about that. That was on the next slide. That you have to have an additional license, but potentially hazardous farmers market license to sell it at the farmers market. So you have to have two licenses in order to sell it at the farmers market if you're doing the cheesecake type of product. And you also, for the Department of Inspections and Appeals, have to keep a record. So even though we're going to talk about you and FSMA, you may not fall under that FSMA rule. BIA still has you following certain records keeping as far as your employees. So you have to keep a record of who worked for you, so your name, their address, their phone numbers, and when did they work in their hours as far as traceability, just in case something happens. So that's for the home bakery license. They also have the exempt home food operations, or also known as cottage foods. They can sell non-temperature control for safety food items. That excludes low acid canned foods and fermented foods. So no pickles, no salsa, no sauerkraut. You have to do that in another special facility in order to sell that. So you cannot produce those products at home. Sorry, we do not have a pickle bill like Minnesota. I went to school in Colorado. I just came back from Colorado. They have a special pickle bill now. We don't have that. What can you sell? You can sell breads, loaves, and biscuits, pastries, candies, fruit pies, jams, and jellies that only follow the 21 CFR Part 150. We are working on material that explain that to you properly. And just so you know now, Roni Berry is not under that rule. So you have to do special testing in order to sell Roni berries in this state. And that also includes cereals, trail mix, and granola. Last week, my graduate student and I met with Department of Inspections and Appeals, and she created a very detailed list of any and everything that you could sell. And so I'm going to talk to you later about a training that we are doing. And if you come to our training, I guess that's our little thing that we want to sell. If you come to the training, we can get you that list that DIA approved. And you can share it with others if you want to, but you went to the training. So FSMA is not affecting this audience, even though they do fall a little bit on that low end. DIA does not require them to have any FSMA regulations as of now. So right now, for home bakeries, you have to get that specific license, but you can only sell up to $35,000. Home food operations, you can sell those non-potentially hazardous foods, and there is no limit on how much you can sell. Okay? So this is basically what they're saying, that they fall on that lower end, so they're not as far as falling with the FSMA rules. Resources I have shared with you guys. We did an updated list. So we have a couple of fact sheets out there that talk about home food establishments and all of that. So it's all of them wrapped up in one. So I've decided to break these two type of operations out by themselves. And so right here is the handout or the fact sheet that covers rules and regulations and licensing. It gives you a definition of those non-TCS and TCS foods and examples, and we have a checklist. So we feel like that would be easier for people to find out whether they fall under that rule, going by definition, where their product is being sold, what type of licensing they need, whether they can sell to a wholesale distributor or not, whether there's a gross sale, whether their kitchen will be inspected, and then labeling recommendations. So you want to share that with anyone, and also we accept downloads on the extension store. That helps with impact for faculty members. So we have that resource. We are also working on a jams and jelly one. We thought we were almost done. We were going to only do it on jams and jellies, but after our conversation with DIA last week, we're going to add in fruit butters as well. So it's going to follow that same format, and it's going to have a checklist that can help with that as well. Yes.
If a place ends up getting their food processing license, and they still do all the bakery stuff under that license?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if they have a food processing license, and they move into that facility, they can still do their baking as well. Also, and then another thing, I can say both of that. Not DIA, Value Added Ag, and my research group, we're working on flow charts that are specifically for farmers markets. We based it off of this same thing for FSMA. So I know I was in charge of honey, low acid foods, juices, cut fresh produce. It was just anything and everything.
Maple syrup.
Yeah. How do you know?
That's the one that we can't get a good answer. I can't get a good answer on.
Well, yeah. So we are working on those flow charts right now, and we are having DIA, Department of Inspections and Appeals. We're having IDOLS, all of them review those flow charts before we put them out. And so whenever you see Value Added Ag, or even myself, we will have all those flow charts for you, or we can share them with you once they're published. Now for my research end, we will have a training coming up this spring. So my graduate student just finished the development of her own training for the home food operations and bakeries that will go on this spring. We received excellent extension funds that will cover 30 participants in each site. So we will cover all of the food safety needs for that audience. with the curriculum that we developed based off of needs assessment that we did along with the Leopold Center. And so some of you guys probably saw that needs assessment last February and had people to fill it out for us. So we're covering the Iowa policies and regulations. With them, food safety basics, talking about foodborne pathogens, giving a more detailed description of non-TCS and TCS foods. We've been doing activities to help people identify that, because sometimes it gets a little gray area and sometimes you think something is non-TCS when it's really TCS. We talk about your kitchen and your preparation as well as your sourcing of ingredients, and with that we will have a certificate for those at the end. This will be, in the spring, this will be our piloted project, and in our grant we wrote funds for the first 30 people to be allowed in for free. So if anyone's interested, we also are allowing inspectors to come as well. So you don't want the inspectors to take your spot. So I tell them beat the inspectors into the training as well. So we're gonna hit 5 different locations in the state. We're gonna hit about central locations in each corners, and then 1 training here in Ames. And so once my student, she's gonna send the training out to reviewers to review it for the next month, and then we'll start making arrangements for locations and training. So if you have any suggestions, there's a lady in Creston, Alexi, that is trying to convince us that the training should be in Creston. So if you live in Southwest Iowa and you want to fight her for that position, she's the only lady who has, and plus I do a lot of work in their area right now too, so she's the only lady who's like, you should have it in Creston, and this is why. She like gave a whole reason and argument of why it should be in Creston. So if you feel that same way about your location and you fall within this area, come and tell me, and we can start making those arrangements in your area. And so here's my contact information. I found out after Googling myself that my contact information is everywhere. So if you don't get it right now, I believe you can find me, especially with my department website. And then I also have cards with me, and then Leah Gilman is my graduate student that is working on the training, and she can be a resource to you as well. So, are there any questions? I think that's it for me.
Afterwards, can I talk to you about this?
Sure.
Basically, you were talking about getting something tested. The ISU does that now, right?
Yes, so Dr. Lester Wilson is one of our quality professors. He does some testing for companies as well.
Cool.